Do you think you have a domain name that defines a product, a service, or an industry that a company should want to buy from you if you could only reach the right person at that company? Today's guest is going to help you come up with a game plan to get that domain name sold. Stay tuned. 3 messages before today's show. First, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need David Westlow of Wiley Ryan. Go search for David Westlow on Domain Sherpa, watch his interviews, and you can see for yourself that he is intelligent and articulate, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and can even help you write your website terms and conditions. David Westlow is the lawyer to call for all your internet and intellectual property needs. See for yourself at newmediaip.com. Second, when you have questions about domain names, where should you go to ask them? The answer is dnforum.com. Not only is DN Forum the largest domain name forum in the world, but it's the best. You can learn about domain names in the industry, buy and sell domain names, talk about domain name news, and meet other domainers just like yourself. Register for a free DN Forum account and begin advancing your skills and knowledge today. And when you do sign up, send me a friend request so we can connect. My ID is Domain Sherpa. Finally, whenever I'm thinking of buying or selling a domain name, the very first place I go is estibot.com. Their service provides quick and comprehensive information about the valuation and the critical factors that you need to know about, like other extensions that are reserved, recent sales, search volume, and cost per click rates on search engines. And if you haven't tried their lead generator service for domains you want to sell, you're missing one of the most powerful tools around. Those are the reasons I pay for the service every month. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name investor and entrepreneur directly from the experts. Today's show is going to be sort of a master class on the topic of selling a domain name that defines a product, a service, or an industry. You have the domain name, you want to sell it, you know a company should be interested if only the right person at that company knew about its availability and could see what your vision is. What do you do? Today's guest is a return domain Sherpa, Michael Zappy Zapolin, an internet visionary who in the past sold beer.com, computer.com, diamond.com, insurancequotes.com, and other killer domains for tens of millions. Zappy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So for anyone that hasn't seen your previous show, Zappy, they owe it to themselves to go watch that. I pulled out a few comments from that show, and I don't want to embarrass you, Zappy, but I think anybody that hasn't watched it needs to go do that. Amanda said, best interview of the year. Thanks, guys. Gold.
Nice.
A reader named Fero, F-E-R-O, commented, great interview. I will watch it again. And then Cassie summed up the depth of the interview by saying, spectacular. One of the best interviews on Domain Sherpa. I listened to it 3 times in order to digest the many great ideas. And that's why I wanted to have you back on here, Zappy, because you're full of great ideas. You've got a ton of tactics, and readers love to hear them.
All right, cool. I should just disclaimer, those were 3 family members, just so you know.
All right. I appreciate that. So here's what I want to do on this interview, Zappy. I want to start off with your sales process map at a high level. We talked about it in your previous interview, but for anybody that hasn't seen it, we'll briefly discuss the beer.com sale again. Then I want to discuss 3 domain names of varying quality. One good one great one, and then like a mediocre one. Because that's pretty much what our portfolios are. Some of us have great domains and some of us have, a lot of mediocre ones. And I want to get your input on what you would do to sell each of them if you own them. And for those watching this show and thinking I'm going to select only great names, watch and you'll see. None of them are like beer.com or computer.com like Zappy sold in the past. Sounds good, Zappy?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So in your previous interview, you talked about the strategy for selling great domain names. It's I think I'm going to boil it down to a 3-step process. Step 1 is to build a website that shows people what a domain name could do for them. You put up a vision so that other people can see it. And that's step 1. And you did that for beer.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, I would say that, you know, if you didn't want to go, let's say, as far as putting up a placeholder site that's going to demonstrate to people what is there, there's probably a step or two before that that I do. Sometimes even before I'm buying a domain, I'll sort of analyze who the would-be, could-be acquirers are. So, you know, to me, that's important as you're going in, whether you plan to develop or not. It's really good to just, you know, have a sense of who could be the eventual buyer. And then as you put that thing together, you might put some of their buzzwords or different, you know, things that would be of interest to those different people or companies into your, you know, poster for what this site could be.
Okay, so let me back up then. So let's say step 1 is you're looking at acquiring a domain name. You want to figure out, before you even acquire, who you're going to sell it to.
It's a good thing. You know, sometimes, of course, you know, it turns out that the last person in the world that you thought would have bought it winds up buying it. You know, sometimes there's some randomness to who you meet, who connects you with somebody else. But, you know, definitely have the top level players identified so that you can, number one, reach out to them at the beginning, while you're building, while you're developing. And you're just going to have a dialogue along the way with these different people, which I think is important just to be like on their radar at least.
Okay, so beer.com, if people want to figure out or find out how you acquired that domain name, they can go watch the first show. But let's just say you own beer.com. You wanted to, so you did your research, and offhand, I would say every single beer manufacturer in the world would be on your list.
Yes. And I don't know if I mentioned last time diamond.com, kind of how that went, but that might be a good one to, you know, focus on because I'm not sure how much we touched on it last time.
I don't think we did either. So let's talk about diamond.com then. Let's just flip onto that one. So you had the opportunity to acquire diamond.com.
Yep.
What year was that? Do you remember roughly?
This was 1999.
Okay.
And, you know, I was thinking, what a great category. You know, you have De Beers all the way at the top of the chain that's mining these diamonds. And then you have all this process of cutters and wholesalers and finishers and wholesalers and retailers, all these people. And I figured if that could get sucked out by the internet, then this could be a really good category. And of course, at the time, people were telling me, no, that's stupid. Nobody's ever going to buy a diamond on the internet. Maybe they'll buy like a $50 ring, but nobody's actually going to buy a real diamond on the internet. So keep in mind, part of what you should be thinking about is to, you know, if you think you have a good domain that has potential, you know, kind of block out whatever other people are saying, because if they got it, they would probably either own the domain name or be a domainer. You don't necessarily want everybody to get it. And I think a lot of times people go around polling people in the industry or people, and you get these negative comments because they're looking at it from their, you know, inside view or their niche view. They're not seeing it necessarily maybe from the company view or the domain view or
right. Like if I called, if you know, I'm connected with all the people who have been past Sherpas, and I ping a lot of them, and I say, hey, what do you think about this domain name? Or I was looking at this one, or this one crossed my desk, or I'm interviewing this guy about this domain. They'll be like, well, diamond.com, that's okay, but I would rather have diamonds.com.
Right. Right.
You know, and so that I'm like, oh, yeah, diamond isn't as good. Wait a second.
Right.
So you're saying
don't let them get in your head.
Don't let them get in your head.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had the opportunity to buy diamond.com in 1999. You looked at it and you said, I could go everybody all the way up the chain from the people mining the diamonds to the cutters to the graders to the wholesalers to the retailers, and so any one of them may want to buy it.
Yeah, and you know, I thought, you know, just anecdotally to myself, De Beers sounds like an amazing buyer. K Jeweler, you know, some other jewelry retailer. There's a lot of margin in there. They may want to ultimately own it. So I put together my list, and it was, you know, not being an insider in the industry, I really was going with top level players.
Yeah. How many were on the list roughly?
Oh, well, say that again.
How many were on the list roughly?
Oh, there was probably about a 10 on the list. But what happened, and this is kind of typical, is your best leads are going to come from one of those groups that you identify and contact. So, of course, you have to rule out, once again, you call up like I did, K Jewelers, and you get the, either the right person or the wrong person, and they give you some, bad information like, oh, we'll never use that because we're K's. We would never use that. Meanwhile, months, years later, they call back trying to buy it for millions more than they could have. But the point is, your best leads may also come from that list when you get in touch with them. So what happened was we contacted De Beers originally and reached out to them and said, here's what we're doing. We own diamond.com. We're going to make a diamond portal. Because again, when you do get the decision maker on the phone, you don't want to just say, I own this domain name and I'd like to sell it. Would you like to buy it? Because then you're going to get domain value and they know you want to sell it. So you want to approach it a little bit more, like it is, which is I have this domain name and I've got an incredible opportunity in this category. We're going to build this opportunity out, and we'd like to have all the right partners and people aligned with us, but we think we're going to be really big and wanted to let you know what we're doing. That's kind of like your first sort of statement.
So that's it. So De Beers was on the list in addition to like 9 other companies. You called them up and said, we've got diamond.com. We're going to build a portal. We're going to go direct to consumers. It's going to be an enormous opportunity that's going to change the industry, and we're looking for some key partners, and we wanted to tell you about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So who do you even reach out to?
So, you have to have, there's another key element, which is you have to have a certain amount of arrogance when you have the domain name. You actually have something of value to this category. And I think that's like the most exciting thing, because in the past, let's say 20 years ago, if you wanted to get into the movie business or the diamond business, you really needed to be either an insider or have some 1 in a million thing that they wanted. And here, if you have a domain name that's like a category generic domain or a really good keyword domain, you have to know that they really in the back of their head need it and should want it. So you can have a certain amount of arrogance of saying, look, we're going to be huge. We're going to be probably wind up being one of your biggest customers. Of course, we'd like to talk to you about, maybe partnering or something like that, as opposed to saying selling it,
right.
Maybe talk about partnering.
Sure.
But you should have a certain amount of arrogance to be able to call up the CEO, call the CEO's office, email, find them. We can talk a little bit later about finding people on LinkedIn and things like that. But reach out, call them up. Literally, I would just call, get the number at De Beers.
So you would call the CEO, and of course, you're probably not going to get to the CEO of De Beers. You're going to get to his secretary, and I want to go through that process. But before you even put up anything on the website, before you get any press, before anything else, you'd call up the CEO.
Yeah, because I want to, immediately establish that, here's what's going on and get some good leads from them. So
what if they immediately say, Zappy, sounds great, fly on out here to Florida and let's talk about it?
I would be
like, well, first of all, I'm not going to fit the bill for flying out to Florida and spending the time, and this guy could be yanking me, and I don't know, that's just me.
I mean, look, if it was De Beers, I would probably, who has enough credibility and girth, I would say, look, do this. You guys book me a ticket to come to Florida and meet with you for a day or so, and let's do it. Because again, to get in somebody like that's head, if they're willing to pay you to come, absolutely.
Okay.
If it was anybody else, again, maybe K Jewelers or something like that, if they wanted to foot the bill. But you have to have a certain amount of arrogance as well that unless they're going to fly you down there and take this thing seriously, you don't need them. You're just letting them know at this point what you're doing.
So the whole idea is you just want to tell them that this is coming and that you're going to be, you got a great vision and you don't have to go into all the details, and you want to keep them in the loop, and you want them to basically say, yeah, keep me in the loop.
what I really want, because again, it's probably not going to start with the CEO and end with the CEO on that phone call. So what you're really trying to do is plant the seed with the CEO that this is an opportunity that is big and important. But what you're trying to do is really, get a kind of a yes from the CEO, like, yes, this sounds interesting, sounds cool. Let me put you in touch with the right person. And then, you're able to contact the right person and say, the CEO told me to talk to you because this is such a big opportunity.
Right.
And anyone you ever talk to in that company, you can also reinforce the fact that this is coming from the CEO. And
Right.
obviously they don't want to drop the ball because it's going to get back up the chain to this.
All right. So let me inject a little bit of reality in the situation here. If I call up the CEO of De Beers, I'm not going to get the CEO of De Beers on the phone.
Well, I'm gonna say you're gonna get the gatekeeper on the phone,
right?
His secretary, administrative assistant. If you are sufficiently positioned with a good name, good domain, and you have the right arrogance of what you're about, they're going to respond to the fact that they either need to put you in touch with the CEO. Tell the CEO about the conversation and maybe put you into the right person's hands. But you'd be stunned, Michael. I mean, we've gotten, just as a, group, of having these domains. I mean, literally people like, I don't want to say Bill Gates because we've never gotten him on the phone, but, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that you would know the name of, these kind of people. They're coming to the phone. It's, in some cases, the secretary gives them the rap that you're on the phone and they take the call or they call you back. So I've gotten calls back in, 15 minutes from Fortune 500 CEOs who just, they want to know what's going on. It's a real piece of the business. They want to understand. They're going to take 2 minutes to hear what the diamond.com guy is talking about. Because that's credible
So in
enough.
this case, the domain is so good it defines the industry. That's enough with a little bit of cocky attitude to get the CEO on the phone with you.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say that you call up, you get the gatekeeper, his secretary, administrative assistant, her secretary, administrative assistant. I don't want to make any biases. And what do you say to the admin?
I would say, so if I was when calling diamond.com, I'd say, this is Zappy. I'm calling from diamond.com, and we are developing the leading diamond portal on the internet. And I want to talk to the CEO about De Beers being involved with us.
Okay. That's it. That's easy enough.
Yep.
Okay. So she or he, the admin, knows to reach out to the CEO, say, some guy that's leading diamond.com portal, they're going out to market, and they want to talk to you about a partnership.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And the CEO is going to say, okay, that sounds important enough for me to talk about.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, maybe that administrative assistant gets back and say, I briefed the CEO, and she told me to talk to so-and-so who's our CMO, our Chief Marketing Officer. So now they hand me that information. That CMO knows that it's coming down from the CEO, and I contact that person and say, look, this is Zapolin. I'm calling from diamond.com. We're creating one of the biggest diamond portals on the internet. I know the CEO passed my information on to you, and obviously, like him, I imagine to you this is something that's super important. So I want to tell you what we're doing, and I want to talk to you about how maybe De Beers could be involved with us.
Okay.
And what happened there was that kind of that process is exactly what happened with De Beers. I reached out to the CEO, got contacted back. They said, here's the person who handles our branding, our head of, vice president of branding, high person in the organization. And so I contacted them, and they said, look, this sounds really exciting. However, we are De Beers, and we do not think we can go to the direct to retail anytime soon. We do plan to, but it may be several years or more before we do. So it would make more sense for you to contact maybe one of our site holders who's a big buyer of diamonds from De Beers. And in fact, he said, one of them kind of stands out from what you're saying. this guy, gentleman, Benny Steinmetz. He's one of the largest buyers of diamonds from De Beers. He's an Israeli. He's got a deal going in South Florida. He's got $100 million from SoftBank. And here's Benny's number. And I'll let him know that you're calling. So like, what could be better than, De Beers calling this guy saying, hey, this is a great potential opportunity, Benny. Why don't you talk to this guy? And so, I called up Benny and, he said, this sounds amazing. Let's get together. I do have significant funding. I do have, interest in diamond.com. And, literally weeks later, we had a deal put together where we were selling diamond.com for cash, a multiple of what we had paid in cash and equity in a company that had a pending IPO. So
okay, now wait a second. There's a big gap between talking to Benny and saying, yeah, come on down, let's talk about it, and you sold the domain. Because here he was thinking that that he's going to become part of a portal and get a lot more sales. And over here, he's actually buying the asset.
Yeah. So
how did that transpire from point A to point B?
Yeah. So, that's, I think, the point of why you want to just do these reach outs. And even, I think we'll probably talk a little bit like we did last time about putting press out, because I couldn't really get in his head to know what it was that he was doing or was all about. I just had a couple of, bullet points from De Beers.
Yeah.
But what he said to me was, in that conversation where I said, yeah, we're going to build this thing, and I think that diamonds on the internet is going to be a real thing, and we're going to have the wholesalers and the retailers and De Beers and people buying and all that kind of thing. And so he said to me, sounds great, but let me tell you what I'm doing. I've got $100 million. I've got an operating team. I have a brand, but this would be a better brand, and so on. So he said, how do we work together so that we could be diamond.com?
Gotcha.
And, and then it was just, a little bit of negotiation from there. But I wouldn't have known what cards he was holding or how high his interest was if I hadn't just kind of thrown it out there, and again, like I said, I referenced, some other players like K Jewelers.
Sure. You're going to bring them up because it just is a subtle pressure on him.
Yeah, it's like a motivation that,
right.
Maybe this opportunity goes a different way and
right.
he doesn't want it to. So,
right. Okay, so that makes sense. He came in with an entirely different vision. And of course, you're open to that because then you don't have to actually do any work. And he takes the domain and you get a piece of equity. And hopefully that equity will appreciate over time.
Yep. And there was cash involved too. So, it was like, we had paid.
Are you at liberty to tell us what you sold diamond.com for? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was, we basically, the deal, we had bought it for a few $100,000, 300 or so, and kept the domain owner in for a piece. And we sold it to them for a little over $1 million in cash. And we owned equity that at that point was equivalent to $5 million of stock at the same levels that they had taken investment at, from SoftBank and things like that.
Wow.
So we felt, again, there was a moment where we could have taken the cash there, and, hindsight 2020 probably, of course, would have taken the cash, but, it seemed like a good gamble, and, you want to have your assets rolling in a bunch of different ways, and right. You want to have some really good upside potentially for your domain. So we did do a cash stock deal that was, seemed like a great thing at the time.
So you're saying if you had to do it over again, you would have taken more than $1 million cash for it and been done rather than take $1 million cash plus $5 million and then equity dollars?
Yeah, only because I have a crystal ball, meaning, the equity wound up not being worth much at all. And then they resold the asset for like $7 million to ICE. So, they didn't get hurt in that process of buying it from us either. They made money on the domain too, but I could have at that same point taken $6 million in cash. But hindsight 2020, I didn't know what would happen with the stock or the internet bubble or anything like that.
Sure. So how long did you own that domain for? Was it a pretty quick purchase and sale?
Yeah. months.
Wow.
Yeah, really just months.
Okay, and so you sold it before the whole internet crashed in late 99?
Yep, sold it in late '99, and got our cash and our equity,
Yeah.
and you know, the equity had relevance for a while. It was still
Yeah.
moving along, but ultimately, again, they resold that domain
Yep.
name for $7 million.
So this one's interesting because all you did was, it sounds like, get on the phone. You didn't have a website up. For all I know, it didn't even resolve.
Yeah, no, I put like the most basic website you can put without, really had any functionality. It was like a logo that sucked, and how to buy a diamond, which you clicked on. It had the four
Right.
S's of, diamond buying taken right off of somebody else's site. Where to buy a diamond. It had, Amazon here, K Jeweler. I just stuck some links. Auction sites on eBay. It was
Okay, so it did have some information. So if the CEO of De Beers decided to fire up her browser and take a look, there was something there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looked pretty crude, but there was definitely, a site. It was.
And so today, if you redid that, would you pay somebody $500 to develop a beautiful looking diamond.com logo that you'd place on the page and buy a WordPress theme and get it up and make it look really beautiful and professional, but just really thin? Not a lot of content.
I would do that. That's kind of what we did, but it was, being 1999, there was no WordPress, so you kind of just had to have a developer stick something up with some links. So I would make it look, if I couldn't, I wouldn't do something that was going to take away from the domain name. I'd rather have the domain name with it coming soon than something that's going to take away value from what they're going to see. What I put up, I felt like was saying to them, look, I just took it over. This is kind of what it's going to be. It's going to be a portal. We're going to develop it out. But, that's it. It's, how to buy a diamond, where to buy a diamond.
So what could you put up on that website that would have reduced the value of diamond.com?
I think if I put up, something that was, just going to take away, visually take away from that brand. Again, I'm not claiming that logo looked good, but it was, it looked fine, but I wouldn't put up a site that had links and things all over the place. And, potentially you don't want to put any AdSense on there, because when you have a really good domain name, you don't want to have, some AdSense thing come back to you. I've bought a few domain names since then where there were even some AdSense or ad links that I wound up getting a phone call from people saying, why, you didn't take care of me like you said. And I'm like, I just bought this domain. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, I clicked on a link on your site and bought something, and just, you don't even want to have that. So, you don't want to make it seem to De Beers like there's anything there, or anybody else, that they're going to have to undo, or, is negative, or is branding this thing in a way that's too branded that they're not going to be able to just flush it down the toilet and put whatever they want. You want it to be in that mode.
I understand. Okay. So that deal seems pretty straightforward, but on beer.com, how did you do it differently from it? And last time we talked, it didn't seem like you reached out to the major beer manufacturers when you had acquired beer.com in order to tell them what you had planned.
Yeah, no. In that case, I had two strategies to do it. Number one was I chose a partner to partner with to own beer.com that already had some of these beer companies as customers, as advertising partners. Mm-hmm. So I knew that when we developed beer.com, I had access to these folks, and we could tell that story. Number two was what we talked about last time, which was putting out some simple industry press about what I was doing. So I put out press in the industry, geared towards the industry, press release, got picked up by the different, trade publications and some local stuff, and wound up getting in like the Boston Business Journal or something like that at the time. And just, small things, but, they're seeing this stuff, and they said to whoever in their marketing department, or McKinsey picked up on it in that case, is who contacted me. And they said, look, there's a guy developing beer.com into a beer portal. It's going to be the biggest advertising portal in the world. We got to talk to these guys. So, it's kind of positioning it either by contacting them yourself or getting them to contact. Ideally, you're doing both. I mean, if, like we talked about last time, my friend Jeff Taylor from Monster.com talked about why he would buy companies at Monster. And he said there was, some methodology, but sometimes, he would just see it over here. He'd hear about it from a friend, see it online, and then he'd be like, oh, that's too many times. I'm hearing about this too much. I got to, go try to talk to them or get this thing. So if you could show up in a beer industry publication and then they get a call from their marketing partner group that's associated with me about beer.com. Now you got like 2 hits already and, you're down the road.
And so you put up a website that said beer.com is coming. It's going to be the largest portal, the defining point of the industry. You got press on just your vision of what it was going to be. You didn't actually build anything.
Correct. And then, there was a very thin site, not quite as thin as diamond.com, but pretty close. I mean, it was like brew beer, rate your favorite beer, get a beer.com email, simple things that I could do with, my one tech guy at the time and just put up in a matter of, put that thing up in a matter of days. So that again, there was something there that referenced where we were headed. It didn't necessarily do justice to where we were headed, but it exemplified where we were headed.
Yeah, I'm going to try and share my screen right here, Zappy, and I want you to tell me if this was, was this the beer.com that you put up?
No, that might have been the last version. The first version was a little no, you know what? This is the first Labatt version that they did. This is not my version because the O in the .com is a bottle cap that they wound up making. So mine is actually before this one.
Okay, so yours was before this one.
Yes.
Okay, so this one, and I'm going to flip to a separate tab here. Oh, my computer's slowing down here. Well, it's not. There we go. Yeah, I couldn't even get on the Wayback Machine what the site looked like, but it looked like they're beer.com girls, virtual bartender, beer mail,
Yeah.
all different sorts of stuff.
That was our version.
Okay. All right. So let me turn off my screen share here. So that gave people an idea. It was thin enough where people could understand where you're going with it, but it was more than just a holding page. Yeah,
exactly. It kind of looked like a bad version of that page you just showed that Labatt put up. It was, more amateur-y than that, but at the same time, it looked good. I mean, we put it up. Any beer company that went there might not have said this is what we would do, but they were definitely like, you know what? Beer drinkers are going to like this thing.
Right.
And
yeah, exactly. Okay. So then on beer.com, once you had it up, then you actually reached out to some of the major players in the industry and you contacted the CEOs or heads of marketing. Did you sort of take the same route that you did with diamond.com where you reached directly out to the CEO?
In this case, once we put the press out, the phone started to ring. I mean, I had not gone to my beer contacts yet, which were, Miller and Budweiser and so forth. So I hadn't really gone out to those guys yet before I got the inbound call from the press from Labatt.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm just going to quit my Chrome right here because it's slowing down my computer majorly. Okay. All right. So in that case, you reached out, you put up the site, you did your research, you put out the site, you reached out, and then you were able to start a discussion. At what point did the discussion move from, I'm coming out with this major portal that's going to revolutionize the industry to, do you want to buy this domain name?
What happened in the beer.com situation was they invited me to come up to Toronto. They bought me a ticket to come see them. They had a car service waiting at the airport. They drove me to the Labatt headquarters, took me up to the CEO's suite of Labatt. You know, they had this private room off the CEO's thing with like foosball tables and a bar and all these cool beers and stuff and they, you know, said, oh, let's just hang out and talk about what you're doing. And, you know, kind of, you know, gave me like the royal treatment and wine and dine and so forth. And, you know, I told them what we were doing. I stuck to my guns about what we were going to, you know, how big I thought we were going to be and why we were having a lot of fun doing it. And the fact that I had, you know, existing relationships through my partners to talk to the beer companies. And at a certain point, when I wasn't getting off of that, they said to me, okay, well, you know, let's discuss, you know, our reality as Labatt. You know, you've been talking about developing this portal and, you know, generating ad revenue from it. And, you know, who knows, maybe making your own beer one day and all this fun stuff. But the problem is, you know, as Labatt, as, you know, actually Interbrew, where we own all these different beers, the problem is, you know, it would be hard for us to partner because, you know, we might want to use this as a marketing tool where, you know, making money and doing e-commerce and ad revenue from other companies isn't necessarily, you know, what we want to do. So, you know, what would you want to, you know, if you were going to sell this to us? And so again, instead of, you know, negotiation 101, you don't ever say the first number, and you even don't react to the first number. So the guy, I said, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. It's, you know, again, we're developing it because we think the internet's going to be really big and we're having fun and we've got all these beer advertisers. So the guy, you know, it forced them to, you know, throw out a number. And so the guy, you know, like I said last time when we were talking, he gave me the, you know, we're big and you're a little guy. And, you know, how about this? Why don't we give you $1 million and make you a millionaire for, you know, and we'll take beer.com. And I was like, you know, that didn't even sound good to me, you know, at the time. But I was definitely, it was clear that they were interested and want to buy it. Yeah. So I said to him, you know, that's, you know, we're not going to do something like that. You know, that's like, you know, not something we do. But, you know, and the conversation kept going and the guys, you know, pushing for, you know, what would you want? And, you know, wound up saying to him something like, you know, probably 10 million or something like that. My partners and I, you know, I think that my partners would just like walk away from this thing. And so, you know, it was a very, you know, short kind of thing where they came back, you know, they tried to first say why it wasn't worth 10 million sure. And why, you know, it would be tough to get it to be worth that and And, you know, eventually they came back and said, you know, how about, would you go for 5 million? And I'm like, nah, you know, that's not like, you know, enough to really do anything. But, you know, I don't know. I could talk to my partners, whatnot, and wound up in you know, breaking for a minute. And I think I called somebody, or maybe even pseudo called somebody, and wound up saying, you know, how about 8 million? 8 million, we do it. And they were like, oh, no, not 8 million, blah, blah, blah. And they took a break and went off and talked and stuff. And they came back and said, you know, how about 7 million? And I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty cool, you know? And so I, you know, said, look, I can't, you know, again, I didn't want to, you know, jump on it, because once you jump on it too quick, then people start putting all these, you know, things on top of it, maybe trying to get you to earn it out or pay you differently or something like that if they think you like it too much in a negotiation. So I said, let me talk to my partners. You know, it's definitely legitimate and so forth. So I wound up leaving, contacted them back, said, look, my partners would go for 7 million and, you know, like a year's supply of beer. And the guy was like, all right, we'll do it. You know, sounds cool. And, you know, so it was kind of that, you know, that not being too excited about, you know, jumping on that, you know, which is a negotiation skill. But at the same time, it's also, you know, a little bit of that confidence comes from having a good domain name, right? And being able to represent that as, you don't have to sell it right now. You really have to.
In order for you to even come up with a number like 10 million, did did you ever, when you were discussing your vision for what beer.com could be, did you talk about the revenue model and how much revenue you think you could generate with that vision? You know, just, it's all just made up stuff, but are you does that sort of set the stage for the asking price?
Not really. I mean, we had talked about between us the fact that, this could make us millions of dollars, and the fact that we really did have some good potential advertisers in the can who could buy advertising. So we weren't looking to give it away.
Yeah.
We did think there was an interesting and fun opportunity to develop. So, and really there was no precedent for selling a domain name really
Right.
for, 7 million or something like that at that moment. So it was more just, I was picking a number that was enough to give it up and go away and give up the opportunity. But not, I wouldn't, if I said 100 million, they would have like thrown me out of the building. So, it was like trying to come up with, enough that it's more than they probably wanted to pay,
Yeah.
but enough to create, real negotiation room.
Okay. All right. So Zappy, here's where I want to put on the brakes on these stories, which I love, and everybody loves to hear stories like this, but I want to bring it back to reality. I got 3 domain names that are not $1 million domain names. They're 2 of them. So they're not $1 million. They're the domains that most of us have in our portfolio. Smaller industries, single word or 2-word domains. And I want to find out if the tactics that you've used in the past to successfully sell, an $8 million beer.com and a $1 million plus another 5 million equity diamond.com still work for these types of domains, and what would change?
Yeah.
All right.
That's
So
cool.
I'm going to throw out a couple of them. The first one, and so full disclosure, I'm only using domain names. Sometimes I just make up words and I'm not sure if the domain is in use or not. And so a lot of times I think about, well, what domains do I own that I might be able to bring up? And I don't want to do it because I want to flip them, and I don't really flip any domain names. I buy things that I think are personally interesting to me, except for one, which I'm going to bring up third. But the first one is owned by me. The word is quantitativeresearch.com. So you know how people do market research and they do qualitative, which is like, hey, Zappy, what do you think about this pen? And you look at it and you're like, well, I like the shininess. That's qualitative. The quantitative is like numbers. It's a systematic or empirical investigation of a social phenomenon, statistical, mathematical, computational, things like that. It's a domain name for people that don't know anything about it. It's a domain name that gets about 6,600 exact match searches in the United States on Google per month. And the average cost per click is $4.67. So based on the search volume and the CPC and other factors, Estabot.com values the domain name at $25,000.
Yep.
So, and it's a domain name that defines that sort of subset of the industry of market research.
Yep.
So what would you do to start? Would you start with, who would I sell? If I were going to sell that, who would I sell that domain name to?
Well, the first thing I would do is just reshift my thinking about the domain name a little bit.
Okay.
And so to me, if I have that domain name, I'm like, quantitative analysis is, for a data company, is a huge opportunity. So 6,600 people who are coming each month or searching that term, some of those are huge potential clients to a business that's in that space.
Right.
So, to me, this domain name is, I would set in my mind that this is a 6-figure domain name. Forget what Estabot said. They're not taking into account that an actual sale in this category could be a multi-million-dollar contract to, some data company. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two, I think, anybody who knows what the word quantitative analysis is
quantitative research.
Oh, quantitative.
But quantitative analysis, I'm sure, is good too.
Both good names. So quantitative research, also same quality of name.
Yeah.
So anybody who's typing that in is a great prospect because they know that sophisticated term. So it's kind of like my example last time where I would love to own insurance.com, but I was very happy to own insurancequotes.com because when somebody says that, they know that it's quotes, not, insurance, offers or insurance,
Right.
prices or something like that. When they say quote, so anybody that knows something like quantitative research is an amazing prospect for the company that owns this domain. Mm-hmm. So I would do my research on, number one, who's buying the ad term, number one. What companies are the largest companies in the industry that are doing this? And what is the ultimate client for quantitative research? And by knowing that, I'm going to be able to contact those top players with the understanding that, hey, I have this incredibly valuable industry term. It's really important because of the focus of the term and the fact that these are, several thousand people a month are coming, looking up this term, and some of them are spending significant dollars in this category. Mm-hmm. So by being able to reach out to those specific companies at the CEO level, they're not going to be as hard to get in touch with as,
right,
the head of Visa or something like that. They may even be like a mid-level company that's, doing really well in that space. And I'd reach out to them and I'd say, look, I own this category. I'm developing it out. I've got a team that, is going to develop this thing out. We're going to be the, really the go-to, place for people to understand quantitative research, to find companies in the industry to work with. And we'd, of course, love to partner with you and figure out a way to, work with you guys on quantitative research, because we know that a customer that comes through here that's going to, put in the key term quantitative research is probably a really large client and somebody that you're either would like to be working with or could be working with, or that your competitor wants to work with. So let's figure out a way potentially for us to work together. We haven't begun developing it yet, so it is early, and this is a moment where you guys could help us to potentially direct how we're doing this or how we frame what we're doing. And start the conversation off like that with the CEO. Let them give you some concepts or people that you should be talking to, and probably done well, that domain could be sold for 6 figures to one of those companies.
Okay. Now, what if they say, hey, that sounds great. Go develop the website and then let me know when it's done and we'll plug right in and we'll be your back-end provider of all the quantitative research.
Yeah, so I would say that's exactly what we're going to do. What I'd like to do is to keep you abreast as we're going. We're also talking to competitor A, competitor B, competitor C, and all their competitors by name. And we are going to figure out what the best configuration is. So we'll keep you in the loop as it happens. And I would make that the first call. Again, not revealing your cards too quickly, but I would leave that impression. And next stage is, once you've spoken to everybody in that category, then to potentially either put something up, put some press out, hopefully, because if you get a little bit of press going there about what you're going to do, then you send that press to each one of those CEOs and go, I told you we were developing this thing and here it is. Now they're looking at it in the press and they're going, wow, this is like really happening. And, I see maybe somebody else's name in here. And this is something that maybe I got a jump on. And now you've got another conversation with more, touch points that you can talk to them about what the value is.
Okay. So at any point, Zappy, do you think that by going down this road and putting up a website, a thin website and talking to the press and putting out a press release, at any point do you think that your vision is going to inhibit other people's opportunities for the domain? Will people say, Zappy's gone too far down the road, I can't buy it now because clearly he's got plans and making movement towards delivering this place, this service.
Yeah,
Do you ever
I
feel
don't
like you get
think,
limited?
I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could go down the road too far unless it was like a really negative road. Like, again, you were putting up a super schlocky thing that was going to take away from the credibility of the domain. But whatever you're putting up is just a demonstration that you're kind of trying to move forward and may give these guys, and again, it may be that today that CEO just thinks it's good to know about. A month later, he may be sitting in a board meeting where the people say, okay, here's what's up. We believe that the best way for us to attack new business is to, really focus on the internet. And we've got a few domain name businesses that we would like to develop, or maybe his ad agency saying it, or his internal marketing people are saying, we think we want to do, blah, blah, blah research or quantitative analysis research. And the guy's like in the back of his head, he's going, oh, you know what? I met somebody who's doing this, and let's consider that. So I think you want to just move it along. If you're really if you want to try to shortcut the process at any point and say to the CEO, look, we're starting to get some traction here, and I'm about to hire some people and take the next steps and so forth, and we've got some other industry people who want to develop this, and I'd like to give you the opportunity before we go down that road to maybe develop this with your own intent on it. So if this would be the moment before we go, if you're interested in potentially buying this opportunity and taking it over, let me know. That was like really probably the time to do it before we go to the next step.
Yeah.
So that type of conversation can lead to somebody throwing out a six-figure offer.
Zappy, what do you say to somebody watching this show that says, I just can't lie about stuff like that. I'm not a developer. I'm not going to develop out the site, and I don't want to mislead people and say that we're heading down this road. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. What do you say to that person?
So I say that because that's a reality of something I'm capable of doing and so forth. But I think you could just frame it differently. You could say, look, we're looking for partners to develop this domain with. And we're having conversations with different partners. We think that this would be a great, tool or a great portal. Yeah. And we're talking to partners like yourself about developing this. And our intent is to find somebody to partner with. If you didn't have any capability to develop and didn't want to claim that you did, I would say leave it at you're looking to partner with the right player.
Yeah, fair enough. What happens when you get the the CEO or the director of business development, VP of business development, or somebody that's in tune enough with how search engines work, and they say, Zappy, quantitativeresearch.com is an exact match domain, and Google doesn't value them like they used to, and I don't think it's worth it. We're just going to pick a brand like, Yogo and brand on that instead.
Yeah. So I would give them my bullet points about why I think more than ever domains matter. The fact that, you have 6,000 people a month that are typing in this exact term. So if one of those turned into a customer each month, what is that worth to you? And the guy says, if he says, well, our average client's worth $20,000 or $100,000, it's like saying, it doesn't really matter about all the other domain names. It doesn't matter about these other extensions. The reality is you could pick up 6,000 people a month who know what this term is and have typed it in, and you're going to be matched. And I'd give them some examples of the fact that conversion rates off of these key terms are exponentially higher than non-keyword terms. And the fact that, look, I was passed on to you by your CEO because he understood this, and I'm assuming you understand this, that if a new customer is worth $20,000 to you, if you got one customer a month, that's $120,000 the first year you've just made on this, and you own this domain forever. And if you wind up getting 2 a month, it's a home run. And if you got into a negotiation and he said, well, I could imagine getting a couple of customers a year, then maybe you take a less than $100,000 valuation and sell it. but at least you could look back at them and say, you know, again, 60,000 people, one customer, what's that worth?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to pick the second domain name. This is a domain name that I don't own. The domain name is owned by past domain Sherpa guest Eric Borgos, a great guy. Anybody that doesn't know Eric, you should go watch his interview. I'm only sharing information that's public domain. The domain name has an estibat.com value of $330,000. Did I say the domain? It's
Nope.
weights.com. So like dumbbell weights, barbell weights, weights.com.
Cool.
And over on Mike Birkin's site, he talked about the auction that Eric purchased the domain name at for $32,000. So
Yep.
public information, the keyword gets 12,100 searches in the U.S. per month on Google for just that one word, weights. And when you type it in, you can see a whole bunch of advertisers selling weights like Amazon and different shops. The average cost per click is 76 cents. What would you do with that one?
Yeah, so this is a good example because, you know, anytime there's a domain in the related category that has sold for a lot of money, that's a lot of, you know, credibility and a lot of ammunition for you to use. So in this case, I know bodybuilding.com sold for, you know, $100 million to Liberty Media. They developed a really nice site with all these, you know, products and e-commerce on it.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's a great benchmark to be able to say to somebody, look, this is a huge category. Liberty Media owns bodybuilding.com. They bought it for $100 million. This weights.com is an incredible opportunity to, you know, take a piece of that market share. Anybody who's looking up those, you know, bodybuilding probably is searching weights and things at the same time. So, you know, while it's maybe not as big as bodybuilding.com, we still think it's a $1 million plus domain name. Whether that's $1 million or 3 million or, you know, whatever it is, not clear. But here's this amazing domain, and immediately you're going to have the credibility to take space in that in there. And what it means is you got thousands of people already searching the term, and you have a situation where you know, if you're doing television or you're advertising, to be able to put weights.com, you know, a 6-letter domain name .com,
Yeah.
that everybody knows what it means. That's incredible. That could mean that your return on investment on your print advertisements, on all these things could go way up. So that means anybody who's got a gym, anybody who's got a workout system, anybody who's got a, you know, protein powder or something like that, this would be a great gateway for them to own, to develop the site weights.com, and then all along the edges to be promoting their material and their products and things.
Yeah.
So I would put some press out about what we were doing.
Yep.
I would definitely reach out to all of the top players in the category and give them the pitch that bodybuilding.com was $100 million. This is going to be a multi-million dollar. It's going to own it. It almost like has an inalienable right to a certain piece of that market, and it's going to take it. And people are already typing it, so we know that's true.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is what we're going to do. And if you want to be a partner or, you know, something like that, and at some point, if you want to say to them, look, you know, before we go ahead and develop this out fully into the next bodybuilding.com, if you have a way that you think you could, you know, better monetize this, you know, we're open to hearing about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You know, I love that idea where you reach out to the decision maker or somebody that can potentially do a deal, and you're not asking them to do a deal. You're asking them for their input on how you could make this an even bigger portal or marketplace or whatever, and how they could be a part of that. So you get them thinking about it without actually asking them to do anything. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, there's enough, you know, fitness magazines and blogs and things that if you crafted a story about what weights.com was going to be, you know, the official place for weights and, you know, weight related products and services and things like that, it's going to get picked up and you're going to have some press. That way, now you either contact them with that story or contact them back with that story. And now you're like at second base and they have to consider the fact that, this is a pretty good domain name. And yeah, this is a big category. And obviously Liberty Media paid $100 million for a good reason. So, maybe this one's going to be worth, tens of millions to them.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So in that case, you'd probably follow the same sort of criteria. Look at the players in the marketplace, put up a thin website that talks about what the vision could be, get that story down, and then reach out to the CEOs and say, here's what we're planning to do. What ideas do you have? Let's potentially work together on this. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to be talking to all these other players that you might be a competitor with or might be partners of yours. And we're looking to make it as big as possible. So let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
And then just see where it goes from there.
Yeah. Let them, because again, who knows, maybe their ad agency sat in a room with them a week ago, a day ago, 6 months ago and said, hey, we need a really good targeted online strategy, or we need a brand. Let's try to figure out this year what that brand's going to be. You can't know that unless you have this conversation where they all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? We are actually doing a campaign on television that's going to be a significant campaign. Maybe this would be a good domain for us to, work with. How would we structure something like that? And then, you're off to the races.
Yeah. All right. Third and final domain, Zappy. It's a domain I own. I picked up off, I don't buy a lot of domains. When I buy domains, I stick to the areas that I know. I'm publishing on Domain Sherpa clearly, and then my main publishing site is i6sigma.com. We serve about 500,000 readers per month that are focused on a process improvement methodology called Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma or Lean Manufacturing, all those sort of methodologies. And so, when I pick up domains like quantitative research, it's directly tied to statistics and analysis and understanding the customer. But I get the drop lists from NameJet, and I saw one come through, and nobody was bidding on it. It seemed like a no-brainer for me, but it has like zero value. So I picked it up. The domain is noflat.com, and immediately I thought of the flats that you get on your bicycle or your car or things like that. The keyword phrase gets almost zero monthly searches. There's no companies advertising on Google, but there's quite a few tubeless tire products for tractors or bicycle tires, or that spray can that you can fill up a tire to prevent it from leaking. Heck, when my wheelbarrow the front wheel went flat, I took it over to the hardware store, and they're like, well, instead of like repairing this, I could just sell you a no flat tire. A tire that has just full rubber, never goes flat, and you'll be good for the rest of your life. And so so I looked at it and I'm like, well, it defines a very, very small sub niche of the tire industry. And so I picked it up. What would you do?
I think it's a great name. I think it's a great domain. I mean, I buy those products at least once a year. I buy one of those no flat, or fix a flat. I mean, I'm sure something like fix a flat is the keyword that gets a bunch, or instant, flat fixer, whatever it is. But no flat's cool because, it could be that, or it could be one of these tires that never goes flat. They have these like run flat tires, but no flat is something that I could see tagging advertising from a tire company, certainly from somebody who's got a product related to flat tires. And there's not just those cans, but there's all kinds of sealants and, all kinds of glues and everything.
Yeah.
So again, I think, I wouldn't probably spend as much time on it as I would weights.com if I was balancing my time, but there's no question that that's a brandable domain, a brand within the tire category. So I would look at who's advertising those, fix a flat, instant fix a flat products, who's got, and all the tire companies. And I would be reaching out to them just saying, look, this is a really strong brand in that category. Some of the other ones, like the keywords, get, a lot of searches, whatever the top keywords. This one is a totally brandable domain that nobody's ever done anything with and would be very powerful in a direct response campaign or to tag an advertisement with on television or radio. And to me, that's a great market, because those people, really depend on direct sales,
Yeah.
or educating customers about what a no flat tire is all about.
Now, I wouldn't reach out to a tire company that, I don't even know how big the largest tire company, Michelin, Dunlop. I wouldn't reach out to the CEO for a domain like No Flat. Who might I reach out to?
I think in that case, I would probably, this is a good place to talk about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's like an amazing place right now, where you can almost find anybody and get in touch with them through a relationship that you have, or if you buy a premium service of LinkedIn, you can get access to them even if you don't know them. It's totally worth getting. So in this case, I would probably look at who the marketing people were at the tire companies, make a list, get an email, introduce yourself. The direct response companies, I would reach out to those companies. You could probably find their keyword domains and do a who is lookup on who they are, and say, look, this is a great domain in your category. I'd like to help somebody to use it as a brand, and I'm open to either partnering on it or letting somebody use it who's going to be able to maximize the value of this.
So you wouldn't even go to them and say it's for sale. You just say, I'm looking for a partner or somebody that might be able to use it for, the best opportunity, the best branding opportunity, and just let them come to you.
Yeah. I mean, if you say you want to sell it, again, you're inviting them to discount it down to the lowest common denominator and tell you that there's no search value and all that kind of stuff. So I think you have to position as you're looking for partners. You're looking for a best place to put this where somebody can fully monetize it and make the best use out of it. And, we know that you advertise your product on TV, and we believe this would be a great brand for your company. Let us know. We're talking to everybody in the industry. So at least there's a little bit of urgency in there.
Okay, so a little bit different tactics. You wouldn't necessarily put up a website and put out press in the tire industry because it's such a small niche of the large tire industry.
Yeah, I mean, it might be worth throwing out a press release. I mean, you can do that so cost effectively these days that, if you just say, No Flat is, NoFlat.com is developing partnerships in the, category of, fixing tires, and, competitors, like so-and-so are on television, and, so you're really kind of like getting yourself indexed into there. Who knows? They do, they all have Google alerts for their brands and things like that. So they get a Google alert that says No Flat is developing. We're looking to partner in the space. Your email, your phone number's on there. You might get an email or a phone call right off of that.
Yeah, and you'd use Zappy at noflat.com, and then your mobile phone just rings you directly.
Yeah, ideally, I mean, that would be the best. If you didn't even want to go that far. I think you could probably just put your information on there and represent that you're considering development partnerships.
Yeah. All right, Zappy, this has been a phenomenal interview, walking through real-world examples and which ones would be more exciting and how you would tackle them. Here's the final question that I have for you. Actually, I got two questions for you, because I think people watching this show say, what you're talking about makes perfect sense. I like the way you're going about it. There's a saying that, people that are going to raise money, if you ask for money directly, everybody always says no. But if you go to people and you ask them for advice on your business, then they offer to give you money, because, an offer to invest. And I think you're sort of taking the same sort of tact with these killer domain names. So the first question that I think people are thinking as they're watching this is, man, this guy Zappy can sell. He knows all the right things. He's personable. He can I get him to represent me on my domain names? Would you entertain any of those opportunities, Zappy?
These days I'm not necessarily a broker per se, but obviously if somebody has a great domain that's worth spending time on, and I can, help them coordinate or help them to, do the right steps, I do that. But, I think anybody, if they internalize the fact that however it happened, they are in control of a really good domain name that has value in that category, they can elevate their stature to a point where they should feel as confident as, myself to say, hey, you know what? I have something really good in this industry. I have something important and people want to hear about it, should hear about it. And I need to contact them and be, really comfortable that they're doing these people a service. They're not, being annoying or anything like that. It's like, these people want to hear about this stuff just like I would want to hear about a great domain name that was in play. I don't get annoyed when somebody, lets me know about it.
Right.
I appreciate it. And I think these people in any industry are going to appreciate knowing about some asset that could, benefit their bottom line.
Yeah. Great advice, to sort of get into that mental attitude that you're doing other people a favor by talking about an opportunity rather than, coming at it from the standpoint that I think a lot of domain name investors do. Like, I've got this asset, I want to sell it. What kind of offer do you want to make? It's a lot different. So the second question that I have for you, Zappy, is for people that are watching the show like me that are afraid to pick up the phone and start having a conversation with a CEO about an opportunity, a vision like this, what advice do you have for them?
I think you can do a lot of this stuff now via email, via LinkedIn. I think it's something that you get more comfortable with as you do it. Mm-hmm. But I think you'd be surprised, even if you don't like being on the phone, if you take the right, confident attitude that you do have something of value, you're going to be really surprised when you call these people. They're not going to go, why the hell are you calling me? Stop wasting my time. They're going to be really intrigued. And when you get a little bit of that feeling back from them that, hey, this is, I have something here, that's going to get you more confident. And, I think most domain brokers and domain owners that wind up selling, they all sort of start, a little bit, shy and skittish about, boasting or, or going out to people about what they have or calling people up. But once you do it a few times, you're going to appreciate that you have something good. People want to hear about it. And that, obviously once you make a sale, you're going to be addicted. But, it's have confidence, all these statistics that, we talked about where somebody might say, well, .com doesn't mean so much today. Or, I have this other strategy, or I'm going to get some other TLD or something. That is not overly relevant because all of these assets have a certain value to different players in the different industries and different companies. So even regardless of what you say, they say what you're saying has some value, and you can really, be strong about that. And I think the more conversations you have, the more you're going to understand that you're going to bump into people who may have a great campaign that they want to do that relates to this that you had no idea. And that's the fun part about it is, you might think that you're going to sell this to some analytics company or some research company, and boom, you wind up selling it to some totally cool startup that's just been funded, or a social media company in the analytics space, and they're already rolling and they're hot, and you get some cool deal. Or the weights, it might be that it's, some magazine that's coming out called weights.com. You would have never known about it if you hadn't put the information out there and, kind of gotten it out there. And I think just, having that confidence that you have something of value to the right person, it may not be to everybody, but to the right group, you have value, and you're helping them to take that value and build on it.
Great advice. Anybody watching, if you have more questions for Zappy that we couldn't address here and you want to post them in the comment section below the video, we'll ask Zappy to come back and answer as many as he can. Zappy, do you still prefer connecting through LinkedIn and Facebook?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great way to get to me. I got a public profile there. I think it has my email address, which I'll share, MikeZappy@AOL.com, and you can get me there. obviously, if there's I like hearing about, really high quality things that are happening and opportunities. So, just like the CEOs that you're going to be calling on with your domain names, I'm hoping to hear about them. So, I would encourage people if they have something of, really high quality, let me know.
Great, really high quality. Or if you just want to reach out to Zappy and say thanks for coming on Domain Sherpa a second time. Thanks for providing your insights, your methodology, your mindset for how you've gone out and done these really big deals. Do reach out to Zappy and say thank you for that.
Yeah,
Michael,
and
Zappy,
vice versa.
Yep.
Thank you for doing this. This is a total service to the domain industry. So, kudos to you for being very consistent and really, understanding the space and the players. I think this is to me, Domain Sherpa is the place that I go to, kind of tune into what other people are doing, because you can always use that stuff. And the people that you've had on, I watch those things. Sometimes I'll watch for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'll pop around, but it's almost like I get a sense of what all these different people are doing, and it adds to my methodology. So it's, hats off to you too.
Well, thank you very much. You're kind to say that. Michael Zapolin, thank you for coming on the show again and sharing your methodologies and techniques, and for reaching out to CEOs and getting deals done. And thank you for being a repeat Domain Sherpa.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.